In an era where everyone seems to be getting transported to a fantasy world, some gain great powers, others gain a harem, many gain both, and one becomes a slime. Have you ever wanted to become a slime? Well, maybe after reading this book, you will. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Tensei Shitara Slime Datta Ken, or That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Slime starts out generically enough. We've got a guy, Rimuru, who's never lost his virginity, doing one heroic act, promptly dying for it, and then getting reborn in a fantasy world. The only catch being, as suggested by the title, he's reborn as a slime. But, while most slimes are weak, when Rimuru's reborn, he starts out with a couple of broken abilities. And, as he's a slime, Rimuru is able to gain the abilities of monsters he absorbs, which gives him even more abilities. Yep, the power fantasy is strong with this one. Rimuru can transform into any creature he's absorbed, with the slight drawback of not getting a dick, so there's no focus on harem building. Instead, we get kingdom building. Rimuru protects a goblin village and ends up becoming their leader. The pack of wolves he protected the village from join, some dwarves join too, and even some ogres after he helps each of the groups out. Then, after they join, he sorts them out, forming a hierarchy, a system of administration, and a series of professions, creating a veritable monster kingdom. So, while many isekais target the RPG crowd, this one seems to be aimed just as much at fans of 4X games. Now, where is the conflict in the story? Well, so far there have been some demon lords that seem problematic, so likely that'll be the main thrust of it. Yes, this means you can tick the defeat the evil demon lord off your tropes checklist for this story. Oh, I guess there's also some evil jesters too, which makes for more interesting villains. Really though, you're not going to read this story for the conflict. The main draw is just watching Rimuru's monster kingdom slowly grow. Our protagonist, Rimuru, is calm, analytical, and pretty mature. Because for bleeping once, our isekai protagonist isn't a high schooler. That being said, he can also be silly at times, so he never falls into the trap of being so super serious as to get boring. As for the rest of the cast, well, there are technically characters other than Rimuru, but the division seems to be pretty solidly with Rimuru on one side and all his subordinates and antagonists on the other when it comes to character development. His subordinates all feel like minor characters you'd recruit in some JRPG. They have a bit of a backstory and one solid character quirk apiece. Enough to make them likable, enough that you'd be sad if they die, but you'd be forgiven if you forget their names. I tend to think of them by names like OP Lolly and Lucky Goblin, rather than what they're actually called. To be clear, this isn't a criticism of the story. The adventures of Gobta, the aforementioned Lucky Goblin, are hilarious, and all the other characters fill their roles in the story quite well. But character growth is not really what you're coming to this story for. Slime is what I'd call a comfort read. It's not particularly deep or anything, but reading it just makes me feel happy. It's easy to read, never asking you to think too much, its story progresses at a nice clip, and while there are tense moments, you never get too worried that someone might die permanently. Its draw is the enjoyment of watching Rimuru gradually grow his skill base and his kingdom, that great feeling of progress that can be so elusive in real life sometimes. It's great to come home after a long day, think, I wonder what Rimuru accomplished next, and then read Slime and completely forget about work for a bit. The way the author treats the monsters in this story is also refreshing. Humans, who normally are central to most novels, play a sort of background role here, and so the focus is on monster societies. We do see them acting as a metaphorical plague of evil sometimes, as they are often portrayed in fantasy novels, but this isn't inherent to their nature. It's more a function of leadership. I mean, if you're at the whims of a demon lord or a crazed dictator, then yeah, you may end up doing some pretty terrible things. But different leadership can change that. As such, it's really fun to watch Rimuru reform various monster societies and bring out their potential. So, the gimmick of the story that's supposed to make it unique among the ocean of isekais is that the protagonist is a slime. Now, what are the defining traits of being a slime? Well, A, being a blob, and B, being the weakest monster in most games. Now, as I already mentioned, Rimuru is hardly weak, and within the first couple volumes of the story, he gains a human form which he starts using quite a bit. So the story stops really being that time I got reincarnated as a slime, and becomes that time I got reincarnated as an all-powerful immortal shapeshifter rather quickly. It was kind of cool to see our protagonist having to deal with the various inconveniences that come with having a blob body, so I'm sad that this was discarded so early on. Other than that, the only major complaints I can see some people leveling at the story is that Rimuru is just too powerful and too competent, a complete Gary Stew. I think this is moderated somewhat by the fact that the story isn't taking itself super seriously, but if you want a story where the protagonist actually has to struggle to achieve their goals, then this isn't the story for you. Nothing can stop the great Rimuru Tempest. So now, would you be interested in becoming an all-powerful, shape-shifting, kingdom-building slime? If that type of fantasy appeals to you, then definitely check this story out. Slime Story isn't exactly deep or anything, but it's funny and relaxing to read. I know escapist fantasies aren't everybody's thing, but I definitely enjoyed Slime, and I think it's a solid addition to the isekai genre. If you've already read Slime and are looking for something similar, I'd recommend So I'm a Spider, So What? Another well-written isekai with the protagonist being resurrected as a monster, only this time the protagonist is female, and the other monsters aren't quite as friendly. Anyways, that concludes my review. Thank you for listening. Cheers!